14th principle. Life and liberty are secure only so long as the right of property is secure. Under English common law, a most unique significance was attached to the unalienable right of possessing, developing, and disposing of property. Land and the products of the earth were considered a gift of God, which were to be cultivated, beautified, and brought under dominion. As the psalmist had written, quote, "Even the heavens are the Lord's, but the earth hath he given to the children of men." End of quote. Mankind given the earth in common. John Locke pointed out that the human family originally received the planet Earth as a common gift, and that mankind was given the capacity and responsibility to improve it. Said he, quote, "God, who hath given the world to men in common, hath also given them reason to make use of it to the best advantage of life and convenience." End of quote. Development of the earth mostly by private endeavor. Then Locke pointed out that man received the commandment from his Creator to subdue the earth and have dominion over it. But because dominion means control, and control requires exclusiveness, private rights in property became an inescapable necessity or an inherent aspect of subduing the earth and bringing it under dominion. It is obvious that if there were no such thing as ownership in property, which means legally protected exclusiveness, there would be no subduing or extensive development of the resources of the earth. Without private rights in developed or improved property, it would be perfectly lawful for a lazy, covetous neighbor to move in as soon as the improvements were completed and take possession of the fruits of his industrious neighbor. And even the covetous neighbor would not be secure because someone stronger than he could take it away from him. Without property rights, four things would occur. Note that if property rights did not exist, four things would occur which would completely frustrate the Creator's command to multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and bring it under dominion. 1. One experience like the above would tend to completely destroy the incentive of an industrious person to develop and improve any more property. 2. The industrious individual would also be deprived of the fruits of his labor. 3. Marauding bands would even be tempted to go about the country confiscating by force and violence the good things which others had frugally and painstakingly provided. 4. Mankind would be impelled to remain on a bare subsistence level of hand-to-mouth survival because the accumulation of anything would invite attack. A person's property is a projection of life itself. Another interesting point made by Locke is the fact that all property is an extension of a person's life, energy, and ingenuity. Therefore, to destroy or confiscate such property is, in reality, an attack on the essence of life itself. The person who has worked to cultivate a farm, obtained food by hunting, carved a beautiful statue, or secured a wage by his labor, has projected his very being, the very essence of his life, into that labor. This is why Locke maintained that a threat to that property is a threat to the essence of life itself. Here is his reasoning. Quote, "Though the earth and all inferior creatures be common as the gift from God to all men, yet every man has a property in his own person. This nobody has any right to but himself. The labor of his body and the work of his hands, we may say, are properly his. Whatsoever then he removes out of the state that nature hath provided and left it in, he hath mixed his labor with it, and join to it something that is his own, and thereby makes it his property. He that is nourished by the acorns he picked up under an oak, or the apples he gathered from the trees in the wood, has certainly appropriated them to himself. Nobody can deny but the nourishment is his. I ask, then, when did they begin to be his? When he digested, or when he ate, or when he boiled, or when he brought them home, or when he picked them up? And it is plain, if the first gathering made them not his, nothing else could. End of quote. How is ownership acquired? Locke then deals with a very important question. If all things were originally enjoyed in common with the rest of humanity, would a person not have to get the consent of every other person on earth before he could call certain things his own? Locke answers by saying, quote, that labor added something to them, the acorns or apples, more than nature, the common mother of all, had done, and so they become his private right. And will anyone say he had no right to those acorns or apples he thus appropriated, because he had not the consent of all mankind to make them his? If such a consent as that was necessary, the man would have starved, notwithstanding the plenty God had given him. It is the taking any part of what is common and removing it out of the state nature leaves it in, which begins the property, without which the common gift from God is of no use. Thus, the law of reason makes the deer that property of the Indian who hath killed it. It is allowed to be his goods who hath bestowed his labor upon it, though before it was the common right of everyone. End of quote. Property rights sacred? It is important to recognize that the common law does not make property sacred, but only the right which someone has acquired in that property. Justice George Sutherland of the U.S. Supreme Court once told the New York State Bar Association, quote, it is not the right of property which is protected, but the right to property. Property per se has no rights, but the individual, the man, has three great rights, equally sacred from arbitrary interference: the right to his life, the right to his liberty, the right to his property. The three rights are so bound together as to be essentially one right. To give a man his life but deny him his liberty is to take from him all that makes his life worth living. To give him his liberty but take from him the property which is the fruit and badge of his liberty is to still leave him a slave. End of quote. In this same spirit, Abraham Lincoln once said, quote, property is the fruit of labor. Property is desirable, is a positive good in the world. That some should be rich shows that others may become rich, and hence is just encouragement to industry and enterprise. Let not him who is houseless pull down the house of another, but let him work diligently to build one for himself, thus by example, assuring that his own shall be safe from violence. I take it that it is the best for all to leave each man free to acquire property as fast as he can. Some will get wealthy. I don't believe in a law to prevent a man from getting rich. It would do more harm than good. End of quote.